Everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this next video lesson. What I want to do is to work on part 2 of structures, namely to create a database of items, or in other words, an array of a structure, so that I can have multiple items. And so a car database would be a good example of how this works out. We're going to click on the File menu option. We're going to open up a text database, and then we're going to import that into our program. I'm going to have the ability to go to the next or to the previous record, and I'm also going to be able to save data automatically into my database here. Okay, so first let's do this. Open up Notepad. Now I think I already have this on my desktop. I do. And I want you to type the following data. So in Notepad, we're going to type in this information, because what this is going to represent is the make of a particular automobile, and then we have the model, we have the miles per gallon, we have the number of cylinders, and then we have the horsepower. So we'll start off by entering this data. Notice how everything is comma delimited. Right? So in other words, a comma, not a space, differentiates the data. So do not put any spaces on this data as you are typing this in. Make sure that everything is separated by commas. And then you're going to press enter, and then enter the next row of data, and so forth and so on. So again, you're typing in Notepad, you're going to type in all of these items. And then when you're finished, we'll just simply say save as, file save as, and you're going to save this thing as automobile data. Now, you don't have to save it as automobile data. You can save it as whatever you want. If you want to be consistent with me, we'll save this as automobile data. I'm personally saving it on my desktop. You can save it wherever you want, because the idea is to create an open file dialog so that we can locate this file. So for me, it's just easy to keep it on the desktop. So let me save this. Yes. Okay, very good. So now that you have all of your car database information, our goal is to create a program that inputs this. It will only display the first record, which is Ford F-150, 15, 8, and 300. And then if I click next, it's going to go to the next record, which is the Nissan Sentra. And then if I click next again, the Pontiac Sunfire, and so forth and so on. Okay. So that's how we want our program to work. So I'm going to have an array to collect all of this data, but it'll be an array of a structure, because the structure is going to have a string, another string, looks like it's a number over here, and specifically an integer, integer, integer. So that's the beauty of using a structure. I can collect multiple data types. Okay? All right, so you've typed this data, you've saved this thing as automobile data. Now let's go back over here, and let me just demonstrate what I have over here. I have these following text boxes. Looks like this is TXT make, TXT model, TXT MPG, TXT cylinders, TXT HP. This is going to be BTN next. This is going to be BTN previous. And this is a label that I'm calling LBL record number. What I did was to go to the menu and toolbars, and I took this menu strip and I dragged and dropped it over here. And so what that does is that's going to give me a menu box, or a menu strip I should say. And in that menu strip, what I did is I typed in file, but notice what I did over here. I typed in ampersand and then FILE, and then underneath I typed in ampersand and then OEPN. For this item over here, that was just a hyphen, and then I pressed enter. For this guy over here, I typed in E ampersand XIT, and the reason why I'm doing that is for the shorthand notation, the alternate keyboard shortcut notation. So if I click Start to give you a demonstration of this, let's say that my mouse battery has died, so now I have to use the keyboard, so let me move my mouse pointer over here. I hold down Alt on the keyboard, and notice that F is underlined for file. I press F. Notice that O is underlined for open, X is underlined for exit. Now there's no code behind these yet, so I'll just simply type in X or O, and then it just disappears. So it's called the alternate keyboard shortcut. I guess there's a little bit too much space up here, so I can change that by selecting these items over here, and I'm going to use my keyboard arrow to move these items up a little bit. Maybe something like that is fine. And then now there's a little bit too much space down here, so I can just remove this over here. Something like this. Again, I'm just trying to, shorten the perimeter, or the spaces around here on the perimeter. That looks pretty good. Let me save my work. Okay, and we are finished with the graphical user interface. I don't know if I mentioned this already. This is going to be called MNU. That's the Hungarian notation for menu. So this one I'm going to call MNU open. This guy I'm going to call MNU exit. And then I think I already referenced everything else. Okay. Well, probably one of the easiest lines of code to work on is this guy over here. So click on File, and then we'll double click on Exit. So that'll take us to this procedure. I don't need these guys anymore. So here I am in MNU exit. So me.close, open and close parentheses. That's the easy chunk of code right there. And let me run the program and let's see what happens. So here we are. I click on File, I click on Exit, and it closes the program. Okay, that's cool. Let's go back over here. And now let's work on File Open. So I'm going to double click over here, and that's going to take me to this section over here. Now before I get started with the code that's going to be inside of MNU Open, let me press enter a couple of times up here on the top. And I want you to type in the following. So first of all, we're going to have to create a structure. And the name of this structure will be automobile data. In automobile data, we're going to have public make as string. We're going to have model, again, as a string. We're going to have MPG as a double. Cylinders as an integer. Horsepower also as an integer. You see the word public over here. You could have typed the word dim. That's okay as well. All that you're doing here is you're indicating that the information available in this structure is made available to any function, as opposed to private, as opposed to protected. Those are other options. So just type in public for right now, and you'll be fine. When you're finished with that, press enter a couple of times. You are after the end of the structure, but before and outside of any other subroutine. And what I want to do is I want to create a database of these automobiles that I have over here. So we just finished typing all these. I need those to be placed into a database. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to create a constant called last index as integer, and we'll set that to 4. And then I'm going to create a car array. So the car array will be dim car array last index as automobile data. So what this does is it creates 4 of these. And what is automobile data? You can see the members here. Whatever the automobile is going to be, it's going to have a make, model, MPG, cylinders, and horsepower. So I'm creating an array of 4 of these. And so that is an improvement upon the last program that we worked on last time, in our last lecture, where we just had one item. Well, here you have an array of however many items you want. In this case, it's going to be a total of 4 items. Okay. The next thing to consider is the record index as integer. And I'm going to have to get the file name, which is going to contain all of this data, namely this guy over here, automobile data. I'm going to have to capture that. And I'm going to put that into file name so I know where to get my data from. I want you to create this one flag. I will explain it later. I just want to know if I am in the loading status or if I'm not in the loading status. Because if I'm loading something, then I want to stop trying to change any data because I'm loading content into the database. All right. So now, save all, and let's do this here. Let's work on what are we going to do when we open the database. So I'm over here. It says open. All right, well, recall that I created, what I did was I dragged and dropped from over here where it says Dialog. I dragged and dropped this file, open Dialog. I dragged it to the form like this. I just simply dragged from here to here. And then I had an item down here that I renamed to open FD. I think it said open file dialog something, blah, blah, blah. So I just changed that name to open FD. Okay. Well, I need to display that when the user clicks open. Right, so here we are. Well, how do I do that? Well, first of all, there has to be a title for that dialog. So open FD dot title, and we'll say this is the open a database file. That's what I wanted to display. Now, I only wanted to display text files. I don't want it to display JPEGs or MP3s, only text files, because that's what my car database is. So open FD dot filter, and we're going to say text files asterisk period txt close parentheses. Okay, now let me stop here. We're not finished. This is what is going to be displayed on the open file dialog. It's going to say to you, I'm about to only display text files. Now, how do we make it only display text files? On your keyboard, above the Enter key, you will see a vertical line, and then below that vertical line, you'll see a backslash. We call that the pipe. So if I had Shift and then that button just above your Enter key on your keyboard, you'll see that this vertical line appears. This is called the pipe. Now, I don't want this. Let me make a mistake. I don't want the backslash. Okay, I want the pipe. Shift and then that backslash button above your Enter key. We call this the pipe. Whatever follows is actually going to be the filtering mechanism. So I want to show you anything with a TXT. So this asterisk right here, we call that a wild card. What that means is I don't care what you have before the period, but after the period, it's got to be a TXT file. So we are listing only TXT files. Okay. Well, when I gather data from this database, let me capture this entire string of data. And then I know that it's delimited or separated by commas, so I'll say, give me the first chunk, give me the second chunk, give me the third chunk, so forth and so on. So what I'll do is I'll create a current row as string, open and close parentheses. What this does is it allows me to treat the string as something that is delimited. You'll see that in just a moment. All right. It is possible that the user says file open, an open file dialog appears, and then, I cancel, right? So they click cancel. We have to take that into consideration. The next thing I want to do is to open the file dialog, and the way that I'll do that is as follows. So I'll say if open fd dot show dialog, type in the word system dot, then Windows dot forms dot dialog result dot cancel. Then, see, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take into consideration that the user opens the file dialog and then realizes, oh, I don't want to actually open a file, so they click the cancel button. Well, if that's the case, then all you want to do is exit this particular sub. So we'll say exit sub. But if that's not the case, if they really did select a file, then there are several things that we need to do. Namely, we created a variable called file name. The file name will be based on the thing that you selected in the open file dialog box. So openfd dot file name. What did you select? Okay. Now, whatever you selected, I want to. Oops, I said else if. Sorry about that. I just meant else. Here we go. Whatever you opened, what I would like to do is to read the data. So we are going to open up a reader. And a reader is basically read-only access, whereas a writer, say for example, is write-only access. Right? So you are either on a walkie-talkie pushing the button and talking, or you're letting go of the button and listening. You're in one of the two modes. So we are going to be in read mode. So we'll say dim my reader, which is opening up a line of communication with the file that you selected. So you type Microsoft.visualbasic.file.io text field parser, and then whatever the name of the file is, which in this case is parens file name. So this opens up a line of communication to the file that you opened up. Now, what kind of communication are you opening up? A reading type of communication. You are listening. Right? You're going to get data. You're not writing. Okay. Well, once you've done that, then what I want to do is to make sure that I indicate that this thing is delimited data. So we'll say myReader dot text field type. And what I'm going to do is to indicate that this thing is delimited. So we'll type file io dot field name type dot delimited. So in other words, everything is spaced with commas. Let me show you. Sorry about that. Here we go. See how everything is spaced with commas? Or separated, I should say, by commas. That's what I mean by delimited. The data is separated, in this case by commas. So why don't I let the reader know that? So my reader dot set delimiters, within quotation mark, put that comma. So what that means is the data is separated by commas. And sure enough, here it is. See all the commas that separate the data? That's what this is. We also want to make sure that we indicate that the record number, or the record index, is set to 0 when we first start our program. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to read all of the data items from our text box, or from our text file, I should say. All right, so that means that while I have not read all of the data, here's what we're going to do. We're going to read this data. Have you read all of the data? No. Have you read all of the data? No. Have you read all of the data? No. Have you read all of the data? Yes. Now we're done. Okay. So that's what I need to do. So I'll have a while statement. While we have not reached the end of the data. While that is not true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a try block. What I'm going to try to do is to get the data from all of those fields. All right, remember this guy over here that we created, current row? So current row is going to accept all of this data, but guess what? It is delimited. See the commas right here? And so I'll say get the first part, get the second part, the third part. This one, where it says current row, this will be current row 0. This will be current row 1, current row 2, 3, and current row 4. So what I'll do is I'll say, first of all, for the current row, go to my reader and read the fields. A field is something that goes up and down like a column. So here is field 1, Ford, Nissan, Pontiac, BMW. Here's field 2, F-150, Sentra, Sunfire, Roadster. Right? So we are going to read all of those fields. Now I created an array, so we'll say car array. Whatever that record index happens to be, which over here looks like I started off at 0, dot make. What's going to be put into there? Current row, parentheses, 0. Okay, let me explain what's happening here. First of all, what is current row? Current row is a string, but we are breaking up that string into parts. That's why we have the string open and close parentheses. Normally you would not type the open and close parentheses, right? So this is kind of like an array for this string here, for this first item right here. It is separated by commas. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say that 0 element of current row. So this is current row. The 0 element is this guy right here. The 1 index is this guy, 2 index, 3 index, 4 index. I'm interested in the 0 index. That 0 index put into the make of my car array. And what is the record index? That's 0. So the car array is going to look like this. I have record 0, record 1, record 2, record 3. But within record 0, specifically for the 0 index, put 4. And that's what this thing does. So I'm going to copy and paste this because I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to double click over here where it says insert and make that overwrite so that I can type in 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'll take away the overwrite mode and I'll make this guy over here model. This one's going to be MPG, cylinders, horsepower. Because that's the order of things. Check this out. Make, model, and then we have MPG, cylinders, and horsepower. So that's why I have them in this order. Get the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 items. Get the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 items for this particular current row. If I was able to successfully do that, because again, this isn't a try block, if I was able to successfully do that, then let's go to the next record index, which means record index plus 1. And now we are about to read the next item, which is Nissan Sentra, so forth and so on. In this part, I'll just simply display a message box. So we'll say message box dot show, and we'll indicate that something bad has happened. I think it's always version 7 that I use. Let me double click over here. Oh, this one has a text and a caption and a button. And let's see, what does version 7 have? Text, caption, button, icon. Yeah, I like that version. So the text will be record not read, something like that, comma. And then what's the next thing for number 7? Here's the caption. So the text on the top of the dialog, or on the top of the window, I should say, invalid input, comma. And then a button that just simply says OK, comma, space, and then a message box error, say for example, error icon. And that'll be all, something like that. And then I'll just say exit sub. That way, the rest of the code is not executed. And this is going to happen if some sort of an error occurs. Okay. All right. When you're finished, after end while, hit enter a couple of times, because what's happening is you are reading all of this card data. You're reading record 1, 2, 3, so forth and so on. You're reading all of that card data. And now we want to display the first card data. This guy right here, Ford F-150, 15, 8, 300. We want to display that data here in these items right here. So to do that, we'll say populate the text box data with the first record. So record index, since this is the first record, is going to be 0. txt make.text is going to be whatever is inside of our car array dot make. Because remember, this is an array of a structure. So this is how you reference it. txt model dot text car array 1. I'm sorry, 0 rather. It's that first record, and then model. In fact, let me just go ahead and copy and paste. And I'm going to do the same thing for MPG, cylinders, and horsepower. Now, this is supposed to be MPG. This is supposed to be cylinder. And this is supposed to be horsepower. Now, the thing about this, though, is this contains a number. And I'm putting that into a text box. So really what I should do is I should say convert dot toString, open and close parentheses, and this should be inside of this. So let me just copy and paste this first part of the convert to string. I'll put it over here, and then I'll put a closing parens here. Same thing with this bottom item. I'll put a closing parens here. See, these you don't have to convert because they are already strings. See, model is a string, make is a string. But MPG, that's a double. Cylinder and horsepower, those are integers. Now remember, this is all happening when we clicked the open menu option. We're almost done. I want to indicate that I'm loading data. So that I'm not loading data, rather. I'm finished. So we'll say loading false. LBL record number dot text convert dot to string, whatever the record number is or the record index. btn next dot enabled is true. btn previous dot enabled is also true. And then any type of reader or writer that you open, you must close. And what you're doing here is you're freeing up the memory that you took to establish a line of communication with that external file. You're telling the Windows operating system, okay, I don't need that memory anymore. So I'm freeing up the resources. Now, with btn next and btn previous being enabled here, that must imply that they must be disabled when I first run the program. So what I want you to do is to go back over here, take this button, and for the enabled property, let's disable it. False. This button over here, enabled, false. Let's disable it. I don't want these buttons to work unless you have loaded the program. See, when you load the program, load the database, I should say. When you load this database, which you're doing right here, now you can have these buttons enabled because there is a next and there is a previous. Okay. So that is how we open a database. Let's see what happens. Question.
You got to rename the TXT models .text that you.
Ha! Good catch. Yeah, I better do that because otherwise I'm not going to have the items go into the correct location. So txt make, txt model, nice, good catch. txt mpg, txt cylinders, txt horsepower, which it looks like it's just this guy right here, HP. Thank you very much. Good catch. All right. Let me see what happens when I run the program. It's not finished yet, but let's see what happens here. File, open. Let me go to the desktop, and I have a database, a text database called automobile data. Let me select that. Wow, look at that. Ford F-150 158300, which is exactly the information that I had on that record number 1. It imports it to here. Now, these buttons don't work yet. That's what we have to program next. But it will input the data. By the way, let me stop the program, start it again. Let's say that I do this. File, open, I changed my mind. Cancel. Right? No problem. File, open. See over here how it says open a database file. Let's go back over here. Open a database file. That's what I told you to do. I told you to have this title. Filter. See how over here it says text files, with asterisk, .txt. Right? That's what I told you to do. And in fact, it's only going to give you text files. See, these are all text documents. Cancel. So that part of the program works. The next part of the program is to work on the previous and the next button. So we'll start off with next. Let me double click on this guy. And BT and next is what we're going to work on. Well, what I need to do is I need to go from that one record that I'm currently looking at and go to the next one. Well, everything, remember, is stored in this array. Everything is inside of this. So all I need to do is say, okay, the next item. So let me run the program again so I can demonstrate what I'm talking about. And I think what I'll do is I'll just say over here, open, and let's say automobile data, open. Okay, so that's the first record right here. Actually, you know what I should have done? I should have stopped the program so I can take a look at the memory. So let me do this again. And just before I get to the end, just before I get to right here, I want to take a look at the array. So start, open this card database in my desktop, open. Okay, we're stopping right here. Let's go back over here to our array that I just created. It's called car array. And let's take a look at that. So it looks like car array has a bunch of items and 0 through 4. Right? So if I take a look at this first item, cylinders, 8, horsepower 300, make Ford F-150 15. That's my first item. My second item is the Nissan Sentra. My third item is the Pontiac Sunfire, so forth and so on. So inside of my car array, I have an import of all these guys. Where is it? Oh, I think I accidentally closed this. Where's my automobiles data? So let me go back over here, close the program, and double click on here. Notepad's fine. There it is. That's the data that I've just incorporated or input into this car array. So now that I have that, I can go back over here to BT and next. Take this guy away. If the record index is less than last index, then, in other words, let's say that I have 4 records, okay? So the first record will be 0, the next one will be 1, 2, and 3 is the last record, because we're going to start counting from 0. As long as the record index is less than 4, then we can keep on going. But let's say that I'm looking at the last record, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. Well, the next record is going to be 4. Well, there is no 4th record, or index number 4. We have index 0, 1, 2, 3. There is no index 4. So I should not be able to click to the next item because there is no next item. As long as the record index is less than the last index, then what are we going to do? Well, first of all, we'll increment the record index. I will change that label to reflect that. So that means convert.toString, and then whatever the record index is. I am currently loading data into the text boxes, so let me just indicate that state. Yeah, we're in the true state of loading. And now let's go ahead and make those assignments. So in txt_make.text, that's going to be from my car array, whatever record index is, dot make. So we are referring to the structure inside of the array. Txt model. In fact, let me just do this. Just copy and paste. Model MPG cylinders horsepower. And then I'll say loading is false. We are not loading at this point. We just finished everything. And then I got to change these items. This will be txt model, txt MPG, txt cylinders, txt horsepower. And then, of course, I'm going to make those same changes over here. Model, MPG, cylinders, horsepower. Now, these guys are numbers, right? MPG, that's a double. And I'm going to put that into the text property. So really what I should do is I should say convert.toString, open parens, and then I'll put a closing parens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this first part right here of the convert.toString, put that here, put a closing parens. Put that here, paste it there, put a closing parens. Now your program will work without that because Visual Basic will automatically convert or cast this number as a string, but this right here shows you that you are explicitly doing that. All right, let's see what happens. So let me run the program. We're not finished yet, of course. Let me open this automobile data. Here we go. And let's see what happens when I click next. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Record 1, record 2, record 3. Now, there is no record index 4, so when I click this, looks like I made a mistake here. It loaded data that's not there. So we got to fix that. But the next button works. That's good. Let's see here. Did I accidentally? You know why I did that? Check this out. My cursor is blinking right here, so that's not good. What I should do is delete, delete, and now let me save, because there is no data after that. Let me run the program again. This time it should work. Open automobile data, and let's see here. Next, next, next. That's my last record. Let's see what happens when I do this again. Oh, still didn't work. Let's see here. It looks like everything's okay. Let me save and exit. Maybe I have to exit the file. I don't think so. BMW. Nope, it's still reading that. So I think there's something that I'm accidentally going to record number 4, index number 4. Let's see here. Next. As long as the record index, okay, so the last index is 4, and 3 is less than 4, so that should work out. Let's see, I'm going to stop the program right here. It bothers me that it goes to the next record. Let's troubleshoot it here. So I'll go to automobile data. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next record. Now, record is 0. 0 is less than the last index, so that's true. So I should be able to continue from here. And here we are at index number 1. So now I'm going to go to the next record. The record index is currently 1. Yep, that's right. That's last in the last index. So that means that I should be able to continue from here. And now we're at 2. Let me do this again. Okay, now this is the last record. So 3 is 3 less than the last index? Oh, it is, because last index is 4. So what happens is when I do this, 3 is in fact less than 4, even though we are looking at the 4th item, right? So that means it goes into here, and that's incorrect. So really what I should have done is I should have said last index minus 1. Because I do have 4 items, 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 should be less than whatever the last index is minus 1. So now this should work out. Let's see. Open the automobiles data. So there's index 0, 1, 2, 3, and now it shouldn't work. Perfect. Nice. Let's work on previous. So this guy over here, I double click it because it's the previous button that needs to go back. Previous record. So if the record index is greater than 0, then we'll take record index and decrement it by 1 because we're taking a look at the previous record. We're going to make sure to update the label on the bottom to indicate what record number we are looking at. To string, record index. We are currently going to be loading data. So I'm going to say true. txt make .text is going to be, again, all the data is inside of this car array for this particular record index .make. So let me just take this guy, copy and paste it. For model, MPG, cylinders, horsepower. And then we'll say loading. We're done, so we're no longer loading. Now I have to change these items to txt model. txt mpg, the text box cylinders, and finally the text box horsepower. I also have to make that change over here, model, mpg, cylinders, horsepower. Save my work. So now I should be able to go to a previous record. Let's see what happens. Start. Let's open the database, automobile data. So I'm going to go to the next record, to the next record, to the last record here. Then I'm going to click previous. So it goes to 2, goes to 1, goes to 0. Now this should not work because we are already at the 0 record. It looks good. So now I'm able to propagate through my database. Let me close this. And I wanted to show you that this, in fact, is reading the data properly. This says Ford F-150. Let me change this data to Toyota. You don't have to do this. I'm just giving you a show here. Toyota Camry. I get 25 miles per gallon. It's a 4-cylinder, and I have, let's say, 150 horsepower. Let me save this. Close it. So you see I changed that from Ford to Toyota Camry. Let me run the program. Open. Automobile data. There it is. Toyota Camry 25, 4, 150. That's the data that I just entered. And then, of course, I can go to the next items. All right. So that's it for this video lesson. I know it was a long video lesson, so that's it for this one. But really, part 2 needs to be that I am allowed to change this data. So instead of a Toyota Camry, what if I have a Toyota Sentra, say, for example? So I should be able to type in Sentra, have that stored in the array, and then also have that stored in the file so that when I close this program and open it back up again, it retains the data that I most recently submitted. Okay, so we'll save that for a future video lesson. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.